Not everyone is convinced of Traoré's golden age. In April 2025, General Michael Langley, head of the US military's AFRICOM, testified before the Senate, alleging that Burkina Faso's gold profits were not building a nation, but protecting Traoré's regime.
This is the journey to one Africa.
On April 22, 2025, discussions around Ibrahim Traoré, the interim president of Burkina Faso since a coup in September 2022, have intensified due to allegations from the United States and perceived tensions with France. Traoré, at 37, is noted for his efforts to distance Burkina Faso from its former colonial power, France, and for his role in founding the Alliance of Sahel States, alongside Mali and Niger. This report explores the claims that the USA and France want to arrest Traoré, particularly focusing on AFRICOM's accusations regarding the use of Burkina Faso's gold and the broader geopolitical context. Ibrahim Traoré, a Burkinabe military officer and politician, assumed power following a coup that ousted interim president Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Ibrahim Traoré, Wikipedia. Born on March 14, 1988, in Kera, Bondokui, Muhun Province, Traoré studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou and has been described as a quiet and talented student. His leadership has been marked by efforts to combat terrorism and restore territorial integrity, though his regime has faced criticism for human rights issues and delays in transitioning to democratic rule. Burkina Faso. Progress and problems after 2 years of transition. GTDJ. ISS Africa. His popularity has soared, making him arguably Africa's most favored president. Yet his alignment with Russia and distancing from Western powers, especially France, have fueled international scrutiny. Can Ibrahim Traoré turn the fortunes of Burkina Faso around? ISS African Futures. US accusations and AFRICOM's role. Research suggests that on April 3, 2025, General Michael Langley, commander of the United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, testified before the US Senate Armed Services Committee, delivering the 2025 posture statement. During this hearing, in response to a question about corruption and bribery linked to trade with China, Langley alleged that Burkina Faso's mineral revenues, particularly gold, are being used to sustain Traoré's regime rather than benefiting the population. Specifically, he stated, Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, their gold reserves are just in exchange to protect the junta regime. South Africa's EFF rejects US claims on Burkina Faso gold. Business Insider Africa. This accusation implies that Traoré is misusing national resources to consolidate power, potentially at the expense of addressing security and economic challenges. Burkina Faso's government has vehemently rejected these claims. On April 15, 2025, the Burkinabe Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Regional Cooperation, and Burkinabe Abroad issued a statement denouncing Langley's remarks as regrettable and frivolous, asserting they are part of a neo-colonial ploy to destabilize the Alliance of Sahel States. Burkina Faso slams AFRICOM commander for regrettable and frivolous. Claims about Burkinabe cooperation with China. West Africa Weekly. The Sahel Solidarity Campaign Network, SASCAN, also labeled the accusations racist and baseless, emphasizing Traoré's grassroots reputation for prioritizing national security and economic self-reliance. Sahel Advocacy Group rejects US general's claims against Burkina Faso President Agence News Ghana. France's stance and relations with Burkina Faso. It seems likely that France has strained relations with Burkina Faso under Traoré's leadership, but there is no public evidence that France wants to arrest him. The tensions stem from Traoré's decision to expel French troops and diplomats, order the departure of France's defense attaché and ambassador, and suspend some French media, reflecting a broader anti-French sentiment in the Sahel. Burkina Faso frees 4 French spies after Moroccan mediation. Reuters. In December 2024, 4 French intelligence agents were held in Burkina Faso for a year on espionage charges, before being freed through Moroccan mediation. highlighting ongoing diplomatic rows, how 4 French intelligence agents, held for a year in Burkina Faso, were freed. Le Monde. Burkina Faso has also accused France of destabilization efforts in complicity with Benin and Ivory Coast. Pointing to France's military bases in the region, Burkina Faso accuses France of destabilization in complicity with Benin, Ivory Coast, Anadolu Agency. However, French officials have not made public statements indicating an intent to arrest Traoré. In January 2025, Traoré criticized French President Emmanuel Macron, calling his remarks insulting all Africans. But this was part of a broader critique of French policy. Not a direct threat of arrest, France's Macron insulting all Africans, says Burkina Faso President, Anadolu Agency. Analysis of arrest claims. The evidence leans toward the claim that France and the USA want to arrest Ibrahim Traoré, being an exaggeration. The USA, through AFRICOM, has made serious accusations regarding gold misuse, but these are part of a broader geopolitical strategy to counter Russian and Chinese influence in Africa, as Langley also mentioned concerns about these powers exploiting instability. South Africa's EFF rejects US claims on Burkina Faso gold. Business Insider, Africa. There is no mention of formal arrest warrants or intentions from the USA, suggesting the accusations are more rhetorical than actionable. For France, the lack of direct statements or actions to arrest Traoré, despite strained relations, indicates that the claim is not supported by current evidence. The arrests of French nationals in Burkina Faso, such as a former French legionnaire in August 2024 on espionage charges, suggest mutual suspicion, but not a state-level intent to arrest Traoré. Burkina Faso, police arrest former French legionnaire, Judge APA News, African press agency. This situation reflects broader geopolitical tensions in the Sahel, with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger forming the alliance of Sahel states and withdrawing from ECOWAS, aligning more with Russia and China. Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré is making waves in West Africa. Who is he? The conversation. The US accusations and Burkina Faso's rejection highlight a contest for influence, with Traoré's regime accusing Western powers of neocolonialism. The controversy is evident in the strong reactions from Pan-African groups like SASCAN, who see the US claims as racist and destabilizing. Historically, Burkina Faso has seen multiple coups, with Traoré being the latest in a line of military leaders often trained by Western powers like the Pentagon, yet now aligning with Russia, who's really behind Burkina Faso's coup. Mr. Online. This mirrors contemporary parallels in Mali and Niger, where similar anti-French sentiments have led to shifts toward non-Western alliances, complicating Western strategies in the region. Research suggests that while the USA has accused Traoré of misusing gold, there is no clear intent to arrest him, and France shows no public desire to do so, despite tensions. It seems likely that these claims reflect broader geopolitical strategies rather than immediate arrest plans. The evidence leans toward ongoing diplomatic and security challenges, with Burkina Faso asserting sovereignty against perceived external interference. To address this, recommendations include diplomatic dialogue to reduce tensions, transparency in resource management to counter accusations, and international mediation to stabilize relations. Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation in West Africa, sits atop a treasure trove of gold. For decades, this wealth fueled foreign coffers while leaving its people mired in poverty. In 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 34-year-old military officer, seized power in a coup promising to rewrite this story. Inspired by the revolutionary ideals of Thomas Sankara, Traoré vowed to keep Burkina Faso's gold at home, refining it locally and using the profits to build roads, schools and hospitals. His vision of self-reliance has sparked hope across the nation and the continent. But a pressing question looms. Is this gold truly serving Burkina Faso's people? Or is it enriching a new elite? And how does this compare to the corruption and bribery scandals? Tied to global initiatives like China's Belt and Road, this in-depth exploration digs into Traoré's gold management, the whispers of corruption, and the parallels, or lack thereof, with one of the world's largest infrastructure projects. When Traoré assumed power, he inherited a nation frustrated by decades of exploitation. Foreign companies, Canadian, French, Russian, had long dominated Burkina Faso's gold sector, extracting raw ore and leaving minimal benefits behind. Traoré's response was bold: nationalize the resource and process it in-country. Refineries were established, and the state-owned Société Nationale des Substances Précieuses, SNOA-F, took charge of gold sales. The results were swift and tangible. Tractors appeared in rural fields, boosting agricultural output. New roads connected isolated villages. Mobile clinics brought healthcare to the remote. In Ouagadougou, crowds cheered Traoré's name, seeing in him a modern Sankara, a leader who could reclaim Burkina Faso's destiny. This shift wasn't just economic, it was ideological. By refining gold locally, Traoré challenged the colonial model where African nations export raw materials and import finished goods at a premium. His policies signaled a broader African push for sovereignty, a rejection of dependency on foreign powers. But grand visions often come with shadows. Could this experiment in resource nationalism withstand the temptations of power? Not everyone is convinced of Traoré's golden age. In April 2025, General Michael Langley, head of the US military's AFRICOM, testified before the Senate, alleging that Burkina Faso's gold profits were not building a nation, but protecting Traoré's regime. The implication was clear. The young captain and his junta, allies, might be skimming wealth, leaving the people with scraps while consolidating power. It's a narrative with deep roots. African leaders cast as corrupt strongmen, hoarding resources under the guise of progress. Yet, context complicates the picture. Before Traoré, foreign firms controlled Burkina Faso's gold, paying scant taxes and royalties. His nationalization efforts disrupted that status quo, threatening powerful interests. Langley's accusation could be less about evidence and more about geopolitics, a jabe at a leader who's sidelined. Western influence in favor of local control and partnerships with Russia. Unlike high-profile corruption scandals elsewhere, no leaked documents or whistleblower accounts have substantiated claims of elite enrichment in Burkina Faso. The whispers remain just that: speculation, not proof. To understand whether corruption and bribery plague Burkina Faso's gold management, a comparison to China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, offers insight. Launched in 2013, the BRI has invested billions in infrastructure across Africa, Asia and beyond, roads in Kenya, ports in Sri Lanka, railways in Ethiopia. The promise is development, but the reality is murkier. Critics point to well-documented cases of corruption. Local elites in countries, like Zambia or Pakistan allegedly, accepting bribes to greenlight Chinese contracts, often saddling their nations with unpayable debts. In Malaysia, the 1MDB scandal tied BRI projects to massive embezzlement. These deals frequently benefit foreign firms and local insiders while leaving ordinary citizens with crumbling bridges or unused ports. Burkina Faso's gold story shares some traits with the BRI. Both involve resources, power, and promises of progress. But the differences are stark. The BRI is a debt-driven model. Nations borrow from China, build infrastructure, and struggle to repay, with corruption greasing the wheels. Traoré's approach is resource-driven. Burkina Faso controls its gold, funds its own projects, and avoids external loans. Where BRI corruption often involves foreign actors bribing local officials, Burkina Faso's system is inward-focused, with state mechanisms like SNOA-F managing the process. Does this insulate it from bribery? Not necessarily. Power can corrupt anywhere, but the structure limits opportunities for the kind of systemic graft seen in BRI scandals. Evidence on the ground. What does Burkina Faso look like under Traoré? The evidence is mixed but leans toward progress. Since 2022, gold has stayed in country, refined and sold through state channels. The benefits are visible. Agricultural productivity is up thanks to new equipment. Infrastructure projects are linking communities. Education and healthcare are reaching more people. In rural areas, farmers speak of tractors and schools. Tangible gains they attribute to Traoré's policies. "The gold used to leave," one farmer said. "Now my children learn. If he's keeping some, I don't see it, but I see this." Yet doubts persist. Some allege that gold revenues vanish into private hands, soldiers loyal to Traoré or junta insiders, trading favors for wealth. Checkpoints where cash changes hands fuel these rumors. But unlike BRI projects, where leaked contracts and financial trails have exposed kickbacks, Burkina Faso's corruption claims lack hard evidence. The system's opacity is a vulnerability. Without transparent audits, speculation festers. Still, the scale of visible public investment suggests that gold profits are reaching beyond an elite circle, at least for now. Why do corruption allegations surface now? Burkina Faso's shift is a geopolitical lightning rod. For decades, Western powers, France and the US, relied on military and economic leverage to maintain influence in the Sahel. French companies mined Burkina Faso's gold. American bases monitored the region's jihadist threats. Traoré's rise, alongside similar moves in Mali and Niger, upends that order. He's expelled French troops, shut US drone bases, and turned to Russia for security support. Langley's critique may reflect less concern about corruption and more frustration at losing a foothold. Compare this to the BRI. When nations align with China's agenda, corruption is often overlooked by Beijing's partners. In Burkina Faso, independence is the offense. The US and France have a history of wielding corruption. Narratives to pressure defiant. Leaders think sanctions on Zimbabwe or interventions in Libya. Traoré's defiance makes him a target, and gold becomes the battleground. The people's perspective. In Burkina Faso streets, Traoré remains popular. Youth wave flags at rallies, chanting his name. For many, he's delivered where others failed, turning gold into tools for survival. Unlike BRI projects, often criticized as white elephants, think Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, rarely used and debt-laden. Burkina Faso's investments are practical. Tractors for farmers, clinics for the sick, roads for trade. But trust is tempered. If he's stealing, it's not like before, one citizen remarked, hinting at a lingering wariness born of history. This cautious optimism sets Burkina Faso apart from BRI nations, where public resentment often grows as debts mount and benefits fade. Traoré's gold funds local hands, not foreign firms. Corruption could still lurk. Absolute power invites it, but the intent appears rooted in sovereignty, not personal gain. The absence of a paper trail, unlike the BRI's documented scandals, keeps the question open. A fragile future. Burkina Faso's experiment is a tightrope walk. Security threats from jihadist groups strain resources. Foreign pressure, sanctions, propaganda, or worse, looms large, and corruption remains a specter. History is littered with leaders who began with promise and ended in greed. Traoré's vision could falter if transparency doesn't anchor it. But for now, gold flows inward, fueling a nation's fight for itself. Unlike the BRI, where resources often serve foreign agendas, Burkina Faso's story is one of defiance and hope, answering the core question. Does corruption and bribery like that seen in the Belt and Road happen with Burkina Faso's gold under Traoré? The evidence suggests no clear parallel. Yet, the BRI is riddled with documented corruption, bribes to secure contracts, elites pocketing millions, nations left indebted. In Burkina Faso, accusations of Traoré hoarding gold profits stem from foreign critics like Langley, but lack concrete proof. No leaked deals, no whistleblowers. Instead, gold funds visible public goods, roads, schools, farms. Corruption isn't impossible. Opacity in revenue management invites risk, but the scale and style differ. The BRI's bribery is systemic, tied to foreign influence. Burkina Faso's model is local, aimed at sovereignty. Key differences. Belt and Road. Debt-fueled, with foreign firms and local elites colluding in documented bribery, often leaving projects misaligned with public needs. Burkina Faso. Resource-fueled, state-controlled, with tangible benefits, but no hard evidence of elite capture. Traoré's gold management doesn't mirror the BRI's corruption patterns. It's a gamble on self-reliance, not a slush fund, at least for now. The real test lies ahead. Can Burkina Faso sustain this path, or will power's temptations erode its promise? As Africa watches, the stakes couldn't be higher.
This is the journey one Africa.